Here with reaction, Fox and Friends weekend co-host Pete Hegseth, Fox News contributor Charlie Hurt, and former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. Pam, let's start with, I think the thing that intrigues me the most tonight is watching the Democratic Party be so fearful of their own radical base that they want to, what, have a semi-virtual convention out of Chicago? Really? They're that afraid of their own voters?
Well, and Sean, they're also afraid of their own, the city of Chicago. The new mayor in Chicago is really just as bad as Lori Lightfoot. He has said very publicly that he values protest. These are rioters that we're seeing out there now, not protesters. So, no, they wouldn't even be safe. They wouldn't even be safe inside their convention. And frankly, I don't even think, as you like to call him, Jacked Up Joe, as they had him at the State of the Union, could even give a decent speech. So I think it helps them all the way around to go to online. And, you know, their solution to this was they were going to have when the protesters came on, they were going to have people come on and chant 4 more years and cover them with banners. That would erupt into violence, and they know it. So they have no good plan, no safety, and they don't support law enforcement. That's why they can't have law enforcement in there during the convention.
Yeah, and by the way, Pete, I would not be surprised if they actually send their radical base to Milwaukee, where the Republican National Convention will take place in July. That wouldn't shock me at all. However, I don't think the Republicans would ever consider a online convention. But it's obvious that the radicals in their party, they have shaken Joe Biden to the core. It has now caused him to abandon America and their commitment to liberty and freedom. It has now caused Joe Biden to surrender in the war on terrorism. These are consequential times. Our allies are watching. Our enemies are watching.
Sean, you're right. The Hamas caucus is in charge. Bernie Sanders is right. This is his Vietnam moment, because in Revelations there's a verse that says, if you're lukewarm, you're neither hot nor cold, I'll spit you out of my mouth. And right now, Joe Biden is lukewarm, front and center. Nobody supports what he's doing because he doesn't support anything. The only thing he believes in is trying to get himself reelected. Here's the problem, Sean, when you look at Chicago in 1968. Do you remember President Hubert Humphrey? I don't either, because he lost in 1968, because the convention was part and parcel of the disaster for Democrats. They can't cover up the disaster that is Joe. So they go virtual basement strategy, no debates, hide the guy that everybody knows not capable. They don't have any good options. And right now, the bad part is, Sean, we're bearing the consequences of this. From the economy to the border to our embarrassing foreign policy, we look bad. But Joe's trying to salvage himself off the dustbin. It's not going to work, but there's going to be a lot of chaos in between.
Yeah, what's your take on it, Charlie Hurt?
Yeah, I think that, obviously a convention is supposed to be an opportunity for a party to come together and have a good time. We've all been to conventions where people have a great time. But if you're a party of truly miserable people who hate their country, hate their fellow countrymen, as much as Democrats do today, and Pete's right, it is the Hamas caucus is in charge of the Democrat Party today. A convention is the most miserable thing you could possibly get.
Yes.
Putting everybody in the same room is a recipe for absolute disaster. And of course, they will absolutely do this because we saw what they did in 2020. They would have canceled the whole election if they could have gotten away with it. They did everything but that by making it all mail-in. And Joe Biden's entire campaign. Remember all the ridiculous car honking? And then even then they could only get like 8 cars to park in a parking lot to honk their horns. But my big concern about this is whatever Democrats do, the mainstream media is going to cover for them as much as they can. And they're going to pretend like whatever they do to do it like a remote convention is perfectly normal, even though it's really weird and it really exposes how corrupt and dishonest the Democrat Party has become.
Pam, let me ask the question about RFK Jr., because there's talk about, okay, if there is a 3-person race, is he more likely to peel away votes from Donald Trump or from Joe Biden? Okay, I think once Republicans and conservatives know the record of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Robert Kennedy Jr., let me tell you, they're not going to vote for him. You know, this is a guy that, wants abortion up to the 9th month, a guy praising Fidel Castro, a guy that wants zero oil drilling at all, no fracking at all, no fossil fuels at all, a tax on carbon emissions. This is a guy that called the NRA a terrorist group. This is a guy that's all for affirmative action. This is a guy that literally wants to transform the police and transition prisons from a punishment paradigm to rehabilitation. A guy that praised Louis Farrakhan, wants a $15 minimum wage, free child care. You know, he supported Al Gore, he supported Obama, he supported Hillary Clinton, every Democrat that's ever run, and donated to them as well. And then he blamed America for Osama bin Laden and the attack on 9/11. He actually made that statement. We played it last night. We played the comments about abortion last night. And he once praised China and their organ harvesting threats to meet climate change. Are you kidding me? This is the most
Sean,
radical leftist, and he loves Bernie Sanders on top of it all.
Sean, he is a wolf in sheep's clothing. People need to realize that. You just laid it out beautifully. Not only that, he has been praising Cuba's socialist health care. Can you imagine that if that came to our country? He has been bragging about his children being pen pals with Fidel Castro when he was living. He wants to cut our military even more than they're cutting them now. He would be horrific as president, and people need to hear what you're saying.
I think Pete Hegseth, once every Republican and conservative knows that list that we were scrolling and I was reading my own list, there's no way a conservative or a Republican would choose him over Donald Trump. Not going to happen.
This is a smart move by the Trump campaign, because I think there are a lot of conservatives and Republicans that looked at RFK and said, well, on some of the COVID stuff or on some of the foreign policy stuff, we could agree with him. He sounds different than Democrats. Oh, maybe he's an interesting independent model, and he'd spin out little nuggets of things that sound reasonable. But when you actually look underneath the curtain, a vote for RFK, if you happen to be right of center, is a vote for Joe Biden, because you're taking a vote away from Donald Trump. So this is a great, smart twofer. Define him for what he is. He's a far leftist, which means maybe the folks on the left who are dissatisfied with Joe Biden, they go home to RFK. Go ahead. Go home to him if you were going to vote for Biden. Otherwise, save your vote for Donald Trump.
You know, Charlie, we gave him a town hall on the show. We did it in New York. I personally, nice guy. However, I gave him a lot of time to talk. Now that a lot of his record has come to light, he's avoiding the show like the plague. He won't come on the show. I guess I can't blame him, because he'd have to answer a lot of tough questions and explain a lot of bizarre positions that he has. But it's interesting how he's gone silent on coming on this program. What's your reaction?
Well, it really is. I think it's kind of interesting. I think one of the reasons that conservatives or Republicans were initially sort of interested in him is because he is a disruptor, and they kind of like that. Also, conservative media is the only open-minded media left in America today.
I think they liked him over the jab. Yeah. I think his position on the COVID vaccine was probably the most appealing thing to conservatives. No?
But no, absolutely, and a disruptor, especially when it comes to medicine. But I love that you played the clip of him talking about how much he loves NPR, because I can assure you that of the people who are really in the bag for RFK Jr., they're all the exact same people who listen to National People's Radio. And you'll never see a Subaru going down the road today with an RFK sticker that doesn't also have an NPR sticker on the back of it. So I think, naturally speaking, all of his voters are going to come from Joe Biden's base in the end, not Donald Trump's.
Yeah, abortion up to the last minute. The NRA is a terrorist organization. And, you know, that guy Fidel Castro, the thug, murderer, dictator,
vacation with him.
Is very charming. Wow. All right, guys, thank you.